Alec, welcome back to the world of Survivor.
And welcome back indeed. As is our becoming our little tradition to get us back in the mood for Survivor for next season.
hmm
We're doing Cook Islands next.
hmm
Uh, we're going to be doing some more of these Survivor Funny 115s that you introduced me to.
Yeah, so I mean, if you're new, I'm a big Survivor fan, and I've been taking Alec through the Survivor seasons chronologically from the beginning. So, like you said, we're going on Cook Islands next. So he doesn't know anything about anything past Panama, and that's where we're trying to keep it that way. And then we did a few months ago three different episodes, three installments of this Survivor Funny 115, which is written by Mario Lanza, and
Good
there were
stuff.
there were fun times. I mean, it's a nice way to look back on some of the older seasons, and some moments we definitely remembered, and some moments we don't. And it's nice to jog our memories on that, and yeah, ease us back into Survivor. We only have time for one right now, just because our schedule is so packed. We only have time for one episode before the next season starts. But there's never you can never rule it out. It's not like while we're watching Survivor, we couldn't necessarily do one of these as well in the future. But for now, it's just gonna be one episode, and it might be a shorter one because we're gonna go from basically number 67 up to 60. Will be the last one we do for today, and yeah. So a few months ago, last one we did was Rupert Boneham himself. Nice big entry on him.
I was just scrolling back up and seeing the saltwater catfish. I didn't know they made such an
They say
animal.
animal, yes.
It's so good.
So
I
good.
love it.
Pearl Island's like really was something special. Every time I go back and like look at some of our reactions and stuff, I'm like, yeah, it's a special time.
It's it's a very special time. That's my parents still talk about that.
It's
So my parents, by the way, just so for everyone who doesn't know, if you maybe didn't watch our last season, but you're just watching this, I introduced my parents to Survivor. They like watched a season that I think I recommended they start with Amazon, so they watched through that, and then I think they watched a couple others. Oh, I think they watched Pearl Islands like immediately after that, but then they've gone back and we've watched everything since, and they've now passed us. They're in other seasons ahead of us, and yeah, I've told them very specifically, do not talk to me about Survivor anymore. My dad almost tried to one time,
right.
and I was like, yeah, stop.
Don't talk
So,
to me
but
ever, just in
yeah,
case you talk about
don't talk
Survivor.
to me ever.
Don't talk to me
Yeah,
ever again.
I'm not even gonna go visit anymore. Okay, we're just
See
done.
when we catch up.
Yeah. So
I
all
love the
right.
dramatic end of this article so much for my
How much?
dreams. That's really the last words he said. Jesus. But I mean, I don't
Oh,
think that was necessarily true. He went on to then win $1 million for being the fan favorite,
for just being a
for just
popular
being
guy.
out there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just existing. There you go.
it's
There it
beautiful.
is.
All right, let's go to
Yeah,
number
it really is.
67. You can read this
Okay.
one.
All right.
The Pearl Islands.
John's like a girl. It's another Pearl Islands classic, episode 12 specifically. This moment is a personal favorite and is yet another example of John being slammed by a woman. In fact, if my wife had her way, this would probably be in the top 10 moments of the entire countdown. She could not have found this quote any funnier. It's the second to last episode of Pearl Islands, and Sandra is trying to organize a takeover. There are 5 players left in the game, 3 women, 2 men. And if Sandra has her way, the women are going to take Burton out tonight and square off against John in the final 4. But the question then comes up. Why would Sandra want to take out Burton tonight when John is far and away the better player? Why leave John around when he can wreak more havoc? Is he that much weaker than alpha male Burton? I mean, isn't John just as likely to win immunity over 3 women? Well, in short, the answer is no. John is not an immunity threat, and he never will be. Even though he's a male, Sandra isn't the least bit frightened by him. And why would that be? Well, Sandra tells us her rationale for keeping John in one of her most blunt yet funniest quotes of the game. It comes during a conversation with Dara. And then it's just us and John. And I figure it's still even then, because like John's like a girl.
Hmm.
Ha ha ha. Sorry. This quote just always makes me laugh. It's always one of Sandra's best quotes of the entire seasons. And like I said, if Diana had her way, she would probably rank this in the top 10. She couldn't have been more tickled when Sandra called John a girl. Great quote. And here we have a picture of Burton and the four women. Not that Sandra was actually that far off. Which player had the skinniest legs and arm? And he's like a girl.
Yeah.
John. John and his slimmity. Slim Jim. Slim John.
Yeah, I mean, John definitely did have Burton as a little shield there, you know.
For sure.
But yeah, it's like even when it went down to the final three with Johnny, Sandra, and Lil, he couldn't win that immunity. So yeah, he's
No,
definitely not
no.
immunity threat.
No, not at all. So,
All right, so number 66.
all right.
I'm gonna have this feather in my ass. I don't remember.
Oh my god! That quote sounds vaguely familiar, but why
From
does
Africa,
it? I don't
episode 3. Yeah, like Africa is one of the ones
Yeah.
where I can't remember some of them.
Yeah, a little bit of a blur.
For the first 2 episodes of Survivor Africa, Tom Buchanan was known for little more than being a goat farmer. Oh, sure, he had gotten into a fight with Clarence over the beans in episode 1. And sure, Jessie had mysteriously said, "Tell Tom I love him," in her final words in episode 2. I didn't remember that either. But for the most part, Tom didn't really have a defining character yet. We really hadn't entered the Tom Buchanan experience. Side note, and what was the deal with Jessie professing her love for Tom, by the way? Did anyone ever look into that? I mean, if you have the hottest girl in the history of Survivor up to that point, and 6 days later she's all googly-eyed over a 300-pound unintelligible goat farmer. Bois? What was the middle part of that story? You yada-yada'd over the best part. And Tom may have gotten all up in that.
He might have. We don't know. We don't. Yeah, that. I forgot about that. I remember being, because we were like binging episodes at that point. So I remember being like, what? What's that all about? And then we just moved on to the next episode. So
anyway, we really hadn't met Tom yet, but that all changed in the 3rd episode of Africa, because this is where we first saw the true nature of Tom Buchanan. This is where we truly saw what the man was made of. Not surprisingly, it involved Tom inserting an inanimate object into his pooper. Oh yes,
Okay.
I do remember that.
Okay, yep.
At the end of the 3rd episode, the tribes took part in the famous Build an SOS sign immunity challenge. This was a great repeat of a challenge from the first season. It was done mainly to fix the game so a losing tribe could get back into the competition. Oh wait, did I say that out loud? I meant to say that it was a subjective, non-physical challenge that producers loved to use when they wanted a particularly likable tribe, like Baran, to win immunity. The challenge required both tribes to build some sort of an SOS signal on the ground. Jeff Probst would then fly overhead with a trained rescue guide, and the tribe with the most distinct and easily viewable signal. The tribe Probst wanted to win this challenge would win immunity. Simple as that. There's Baran practicing for the SOS challenge. There was no chance.
Yeah, the subjective ones are
yeah.
a little something.
Let's judge this. Who had the best camp or stuff like that.
Some of those are a little bit more like understandable, but like these ones earlier on were like really like it was. How do you tell?
There was no chance that the Baran tribe was ever going to lose this challenge. For one, their campsite was in a much more sparse area, so anything they built would be easily seen on the open plain. Secondly, they had Kim Johnson's painting kit, her luxury items, so they could paint vivid colors on the ground. Samburu had nothing like that they could compete with. There's their colorful SOS sign. But the most impressive part of Baran's display, the true trump card in their arsenal, if you will, was what Tom planned to do when the plane was circling overhead. And this is where we first saw the shrewd cunning of Mr. Tom Buchanan. This is where we separated him from the rest of the strategists, because in the words of the big man himself, "I'm gonna have this feather in my ass." Yes, that is correct. Tom's master plan for the SOS challenge was to insert a feather into his butt and then flap around like a wounded bird. Just take a look at his wonderful reenactment below. Tom's unlawful use of the feather helped catapult him from big, drawling goat farmer into the hallowed ranks of big, drawling goat farmer who puts things in his butt. And life with Big Tom would never truly be the same. Once we had seen something like this, there was really no way to unsee it, and it forever affected the way we looked at the man. Wow. P.S. I always wondered what Rudy would have thought of Big Tom if he had been on the same tribe. Can you imagine? Why couldn't Tom have been put on Tagi? Why, for the love of comedy gods everywhere, why didn't we get to see that happen? Dislikes feathers and butts. P.P.S. Do you think Jesse would have still loved Tom after the feather moment? P.P.P.S. How ironic is it that the image of Kim Johnson in a thong wasn't the most memorable ass imagery of the 3rd immunity challenge? What are the odds of Kim's song actually being overshadowed by something else? Yes, I just posted that. You're welcome. All right.
I forgot about that whole everything
You
about
definitely
that.
did.
Like even like the SOS stuff. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Sure was a certified survivor moment right there. All right.
Number 65.
Well, 65. Rafe gets dunked.
Oh, is that he gets dunked under the waters?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Oh,
I think
oh
it
yeah,
is.
that's when he like
Yeah, here it
flips
is.
around.
Yeah, he like flipped around. He looked really.
Yes, I remember that.
There's his Rafe Judkins. This moment doesn't even need a write up because thanks to some wonderful Photoshop experts over at Survivor Sucks, I get to show you an animated GIF of the actual event. It's one of the most spectacular challenge wipeouts in Survivor history, and it happens in Guatemala episode 9 when Rafe is trying to walk across a rope bridge. It's safe to say that he has a little trouble with it. Enjoy.
I don't know if I mentioned it before that Survivor
There you go.
Sucks is a forum back in the day. It's called Survivor Sucks. Or the Survivor Forum. It's taking a spill.
There he is. He goes in. Danny and Bobby John reacted to Rafe's wipeout. They giggling over there. Rafe afterwards. Oh, this is so sad. So there you go. One of the shortest entries on the Funny Women 15, but by far one of the most requested. Everybody asked about this moment when I told them I was making this countdown. Heck, even Rafe himself practically begged me to put it somewhere on the list. He laughs at this wipeout as much as the rest of you do. Hope you enjoyed. You get the moment in it where his head just is like...
Yeah. I love that moment.
That's great. It's a great moment. It is a great moment. It was just quite a spectacular wipeout, that's for sure.
Number 64. Savage's rant against John. Pearl Islands, episode 6. This is one of my favorite moments from Pearl Islands. It involves yet another player, this time Andrew Savage, slamming John in a little mini rant that most people remember. But what people tend to forget is the fact that this moment was very nearly the turning point of the entire season. Morgan was oh so close to turning the game around about midway through the season, and you can trace it all back to this one little scene between Andrew and John. And the fact that John's idiocy, oh, I thought I saw an R in there, nearly killed the game for the once dominant Drakes. It was the 6th episode of Pearl Islands, and the Drakes were still handily in control of the game. They had dominated the season from day one. It was only a matter of time until they finished off the hapless Morgans, and nobody was more proud of this fact than Johnny Fairplay. John was the heart and soul of the ruthless Drake mentality, and I think it warmed his heart to see the Morgans struggle time and again just to keep their heads above water. The reason for this? Simple. John was probably the most sadistic a-hole the show has ever seen.
Yeah, he was.
Drake was up 6 members to 5 at this point in the game, and even though the Morgans were slowly but surely clawing their way back into contention, John wasn't worried at all. He knew he could finish them off anytime he wanted to. Why? Because John knew that not all the Morgan victories had been legitimate. One of them had come in a challenge that Drake had thrown to get rid of the ass pointer, Burton Roberts. So John wasn't really sweating it out. Oh, sure, Morgan was making good show of it for the cameras, but when push came to shove, John would make sure to break the Morgan spirits just when they thought they were back in the game. In fact, he was very much looking forward to it. And he finally got his chance on day 18. Drake won reward at the start of the 6th episode, and part of the reward was they got to raid the Morgan camp. He got to send one representative over to Morgan on a raiding mission, and you can probably guess who was eager to be the one to do it. Sandra, can you give us a hint? We'll send John, because he's like a girl. So John was ready to go. His mission today was to go over to Camp Morgan, play around with them a little bit, and then lower the boom by, accidentally dropping the news that one of the Morgan's wins had been a throne challenge. John knew this little tidbit would shatter any momentum Morgan had been riding, and it would probably devastate them just before the last pre-merge immunity challenge. In fact, the idea was giving him a little John Boner just even thinking about it. Swing. So John heads to Morgan, and this is where the fun begins, because when Andrew sees whom the Drakes have sent, he immediately goes into defensive mode. John is just not a popular person among the Morgan tribe. Andrew tells Tijuana, "Here comes little John, unclench your fists." Side note, one of the best running jokes in Pearl Islands is how Andrew always calls John Big John to his face, but calls him Little John behind his back. For some reason, that always makes me laugh. In fact, John even comments on this during the Pearl Islands DVD commentary. He says it always hurts his feelings in Pearl Islands every time Andrew referred to him as Little John. John and the Morgans banter for a while, and then John finally drops the news that Drake threw the 4th immunity challenge. Oh, didn't you guys know? Oh yeah, we threw that challenge. Sorry, I thought you guys already knew that. You didn't think you had actually won, did you? And then John gleefully goes back to Drake, fully aware that he just ruined the Morgan's day. It was a move that only Johnny Fairplay could have pulled off. Is John telling them that the Drake threw the fourth immunity challenge? The angry Morgans are stunned. Well, needless to say, the Morgans aren't very happy about John's comments, especially their leader, the fearless lawyer-turned-hero, Andrew Savage. Because Andrew then proceeds to give one of my favorite interviews of the entire season. It's a memorable little mini rant towards John, where he progressively gets angrier and angrier the longer he speaks. So here's the confessional. Just picture the normally calm Andrew's face getting angrier and angrier as he says this. He claims he threw the chess/checker/water challenge. Well, I think that's just nonsense, and I think it's bad sportsmanship by him, little bastard, to indicate that we didn't fair and square win that challenge. So I don't think they did throw it, but just for that little pissant to take that away from us is ridiculous. So let the games begin. Let's take the gloves off and see what they're made of. Let's have some fun. This confessional is funny enough in itself, mainly because Andrew is usually so calm and careful about what he says. He's a lawyer in real life, you know, and this is the closest he ever comes to losing his cool. Plus, I love the way he slips in the phrase little bastard like Mr. Subliminal used to do on SNL. But what makes this moment even funnier is the fact that John's comments actually inspire Andrew to single-handedly win the next immunity challenge for the Morgans. Remember that? Andrew single-handedly carries more weight than the entire Drake tribe. It is all because he wants to shove it in that little bastard's face. John's comments could not have backfired any worse if he had tried, and this innocent little scene very nearly ended up being the most important moment in Pearl Islands. In fact, if the little face hadn't re-emerged to sabotage the Morgans 2 days later, I very much think that Morgan would have won this game. Man, that would have been sweet, and it would have all been because John just wanted to be a prick to the hapless Morgans. Andrew single-handedly carries Morgan to victory later that afternoon. Andrew's rant towards John and a subsequent victory over Drake in the immunity challenge ranks as one of my favorite moments in 12 seasons of Survivor. It's also the only time in history that a lawyer ended up being the good guy. Why Andrew Savage didn't become a bigger favorite among Survivor fans is beyond me. I always thought he was awesome. Cough. We had to make Lil look good because she was in the final too, and Lil hated Andrew. Cough. Side note, pissant, according to my dictionary, is a common term for many common small indoor ant species, just in case you were wondering.
It's true. That is what they call that. What's that? The F2? She was in the F2?
Final two.
The final two.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So you're saying they had to make him look worse because Lil was in the final two.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's true.
Also, I don't know if I ever mentioned this to you, but Chase Ferrier, way back when he had posted something telling us about, remember Johnny Fairplay in the final tribal where he asked the question about how do you feel you represented the Boy Scouts, and how do you feel you represent Puerto Ricans? And we were like, wow, that was really random and like a mature question. And reportedly what Chase said, and I've heard this as well, is that John actually was really brutal to Lil so much, and it was like really long and she was just a wreck and like crying profusely. And so then Jeff made him like ask a different question, and that's what it was. So
wow.
So that's supposedly what it was.
Wild. Wow.
It felt so out of character for him to just ask the question.
Yeah, I was like, huh. Yeah, because originally he was just mean to Lil.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Everybody just hated Lil so much that season.
Yeah, the Lil face.
Yeah. All right, number 63.
All right. 63. Yes. I've got. Oh yeah.
This will never forget.
Right. We will. Yeah, I remember this very well. I've got a date with Frank. Africa, episode 9. This is one of those it could only happen on Survivor moments, and is yet another example of an unexpectedly touching scene that we rarely see on Survivor anymore. Because just like Pascal and Sean at the Marquesas barbecue, the scene involved two people from vastly different lifestyles and backgrounds that were thrust together for the purposes of a road trip. Well, perhaps I shouldn't say thrust together, because Frank will probably hunt down and murder me. So let's just move on. Needless to say, there was definitely no thrusting involved at any point. I'm talking, of course, about the famous movie date between Frank and Brandon in the 9th episode of Survivor Africa. It was the most unexpected and awkward reward pairing the show has ever seen, even more so than the old man and the brother in Marquesas. Why was it so awkward? Well, because Frank and Brandon hated each other, of course. You could not have found two more dissimilar people to pair together and set off to see a movie. In fact, not only were they dissimilar in just about every manner possible, they actively and vocally said that they disliked one another repeatedly. Thus, their dinner date in the African desert easily became one of the most awkwardly funny scenes in Survivor history. Frank and Brandon, not best friends forever, the NBFF. Here's the backstory. It was the 9th episode of Survivor Africa, and that meant there were 8 players remaining in the game. Anytime you have 8 players in the game, it becomes this magical moment where it usually means a random reward pairing. It happened in Africa, it happened in Marquesas, and both random pairings ended up being comedy dynamite. Because otherwise there was no way Frank and Brandon would have ever ended up in the same room with one another, let alone on the reward trip of a lifetime with one another. That's how powerful the enmity was between the two of them. Why did Frank and Brandon dislike one another so much? Well, it's simple for the most part. Frank Garrison was a 40-year-old ex-military guy who wasn't particularly warm, friendly, or open-minded. He was very set in his ways. He didn't have much tolerance for anybody. And in the words of Tom Buchanan, Frank has the personality of an 80-year-old. Oh, yeah, and Frank didn't like gay people. But you probably could have predicted that. Brandon, of course, was a young gay man who was very flamboyant, very outspoken, and not the least bit tolerant of ex-military men who didn't like gay people. So it's safe to say that he and Frank weren't going to get along very well. And in fact, they didn't. Frank and Brandon had been thrown together on the same tribe at the start of the game, much to the delight of the casting department. And they were mortal enemies by the end of the first episode, just like the producers probably intended. So that's the backstory behind Frank and Brandon. They didn't like one another. They wouldn't speak to one another. Hell, they wouldn't even consider aligning with one another. They would rather lose the game than align with somebody they didn't respect, and that's exactly what happened in the end. Both of them lost the game due to their own prejudice. But that came later in the game. It's neither really here nor there in terms of this
Brandon's
countdown.
prejudice towards older ex-military men who hate gay people. Yes.
No, our moment at number 63, is when Brandon and Frank were forced to be partners in the 9th Reward Challenge. The Dream Team. The Motomachi tribe received tree mail at the start of the 9th episode, and the players were told they had to break down into teams of 2. The fairest way to do this seemed to be random drawing, so that's what they ended up doing. Ethan ended up paired with Mama Kim. Lex ended up with Teresa. Little Kim ended up with Big Tom. And then, of course, we had our dream pairing, Frank and Brandon. And the rest of the players could not have found this matchup more amusing. There's Big Tom reacting to Frank being paired with Brandon. He's just losing it over there. Look at that smile. The other players knew how much Frank and Brandon hated one another, and Tom in particular couldn't stop giggling over it. Tom even tells us in the confessional that if he ever wanted to get revenge on Frank, he couldn't have picked a meaner thing to do to him. This doesn't mean that Tom wants to switch partners, of course. He's more than happy to see how Brandon and Frank will end up working as a team. In fact, like most of us, he's very much looking forward to it. There it is, the obstacle course for the reward challenge. So the challenge starts, and immediately we get our comedic money's worth. Because not only do Frank and Brandon win the challenge, Brandon actually turns into a taskmaster. He screams and yells at Frank the entire time. Yes, that's right. Badgering the old military to hurry or get moving. And the other players are just standing there laughing their asses off, watching little Brandon bully Frank all the way through the obstacle course. It's a pretty funny scene all around. There's Brandon yelling at Frank to get moving. The funniest part of the challenge comes at the end when they win. And Brandon enthusiastically screams out, "I've got a date with Frank! I've got a date with Frank!" Oh, there they are, like high-fiving. So anyway, Frank and Brandon win the challenge. And what is this fantastic date reward that awaits them? Well, they will be enjoying a movie together. Brandon and Frank are going to be whisked away to the African savannah, and they will enjoy a cozy and romantic private screening of Out of Africa. I forgot that's what they watched. They will get food, candy, drinks, and 2 big comfortable recliners so they can relax and enjoy the movie in peace. And honestly, this is one of the funniest things that could have ever happened in the first 3 seasons of Survivor. Frank and Brandon on a movie date? Who would have believed it? Like I said before, it was a moment that only could have happened on Survivor.
Mm-hmm.
There they are. Look at them. This African movie date was funny and awkward as hell, but like I said, it ended up being surprisingly sweet, too. Because for like 20 minutes in the episode, Frank and Brandon dropped their hatred of one another and actually seemed to coexist as human beings. It was like the Sean and Pascal scene, but on a whole different level. Frank and Brandon had no business ever hanging out together, but for half an episode, they actually looked past their differences and enjoyed a movie together. And it ended up being surprisingly touching. Back in the day, moments like this are what separated Survivor from all the other inferior reality shows. They are what gave the show so much heart. I really wish they would have scenes like this again. Although I'm not sure they all need to involve Frank.
Yeah, this is so memorable. Like,
yep, it was really memorable.
Stands out like from so many seasons. It's like never forget that.
Yeah, not at all. Because it's just like I said, they seriously built up how much they hated each other. Like it was a thing.
I wonder what they think now, like about each other, about this and everything. I don't know if I've ever heard about it. I assume Frank hasn't changed his ways, but
something tells me no.
Now, if he didn't change him then it's like Rudy didn't change his ways, but obviously he was willing to work with Rich and get close to Rich for the season at least. But even after the season, you know, he's like basically like I wouldn't hang out with him, but you know, yeah. All right, number 62. Sarge's silent meltdown.
Yes, this is one of my like top 10. I love this moment. So this is I talked to my parents about this moment actually because of how much I love this.
Well, this is episode 9 of Vanuatu. That was episode 9 of Africa. All right, this is one of my favorite moments from Vanuatu, and it doesn't even need much of a write-up. All you have to do is look at the expression on Sarge's face. At the end of the 8th episode, Julia and Twyla blindsided the men of Lepevi when they teamed with the women and voted Rory Freeman out of the game. The men, of course, hadn't seen it coming for a second. They had put all their trust in Julie and Twyla, and understandably, the men were now a bit upset. And nobody was more upset than Lepevi's leader, Liam Masters, the guy they called Sarge. Sarge had been quite tight with Julie, and especially Twyla, in the days leading up to the merge. He was beyond furious that they had turned their backs on him and left the Lepevis for dead. In fact, I'm not even sure if furious is a strong enough word, because Sarge had that look in his eyes that he was ready to kill somebody. And I don't think he was joking around. Take a look for yourself. So Sarge is sitting there the next morning, and you can tell he's ready to throttle Julie and Twyla by their little necks. He's just sitting there staring at the fire and drinking his coffee. And he's got one of the angriest looks on his face I've ever seen in my life. The cameraman lingers on Sarge's face for a while, and this is amusing enough, but then we kick into high comedy when Scout comes over. She sits down next to him, and she starts singing a happy little melody under her breath. What a beautiful day, la la la, the sun is up, it's shiny and new, la la la. Scout singing to Sarge as he fumes. The look on Sarge's face when Scout starts singing is priceless. He's about 1 second away from ramming his coffee mug into her skull, yet she's either too clueless to notice this, or she's deliberately egging him on just because she knows she can. My money's actually on the latter opinion, deliberate taunting, because Scout seems to love to needle people like that. In fact, she does the same sort of thing to Eliza pretty much all game. You see, Scout has always had a passive-aggressive, malicious streak in her, and this is one of my favorite examples of it. She's just sitting there singing happily and trying to get some sort of a reaction out of Sarge. In any case, it's one of the funnier moments of Survivor Vanuatu. It's just a short, quiet little scene at the very start of the episode, when nearly everybody seems to remember it. Scout's just singing and humming away, and it's taking all of Sarge's effort not to give her the reaction she's trying to get out of him. Great moment. I truly believe this is the closest anybody ever came to being killed during an episode of Survivor. P.S. Luckily, I get to see this game, Let's Needle Somebody into Reaction, played out 10 times a day in my living room at home. The only difference is that my participants are my kids, and they 7 and 4 years old. So it's refreshing to see grown adults acting like preschoolers for a change. So 2 thumbs up to Sergeant Scott for that one. Wow, yeah.
Yeah, this is one of my favorit moments ever.
And I'm pretty sure that face right there at the end is the thumbnail of one of the videos.
as it should be.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, go check out a reaction to that episode 9 of Vanuatu for sure. Yeah, we love that. We love it.
Mm-hmm. Very much so.
All right, number 61.
61. All right, Chris's final TC performance. Bullshit up to his ears. Vanuatu finale. Mm-hmm. It's my belief that Chris Doherty is the single most polarizing winner in Survivor history. You either love him or you hate him, and there's very little ground in between. In fact, you can even break down this division by gender if you wanted to, because I can honestly say I've only met a handful of females who like Chris. But then again, what do you expect? In a season that was totally divided down gender lines, one in which producers even went out of their way to bait the women into a gender war, of course women are going to hate Chris Doherty. I mean, what do you expect? The entire point of Vanuatu was for the women to hate the men. Don't believe me? Think back to the first episode of Vanuatu and how the women had to sit and watch the men take part in all the festivities. Think that this wasn't designed to spark an all-out gender war? It's my belief that the genders had mixed a little too well in the Amazon and the producers didn't like it. I think the Amazon cast had too many young players and too many swimsuit models, and the genders ended up flirting way too much for the gender war to actually take place. So I think the producers tried to fix that in Vanuatu, because this time around they cast older people, they cast more women who are big into girl power, and they specifically cast women who are never going to flirt. Amy, Scout, Twyla, Lisa, Mia. And then, just for good measure, the producers baited the women in the first episodes by making them watch a sexist ritual. That's true. That all of that is really true, actually, now that I think about it. I've always believed that the producers of Vanuatu wanted to see what would happen if the men and the women really did have a gender war, like they expected to have happen back in Amazon. So they baited the women in the first episode, they sent them into a furious woman-takes-all gender war, and it all backfired when Chris ended up taking home the $1 million prize. The producers did all they could. They did everything they could to ensure that the men could be hated and men would then be destroyed. And then it backfired in their faces when a borderline sexist, unlikable slob defeated everyone. So yes, the producers got their gender war. Yes, they got the women and the audience to hate all the men. But no, they didn't get the winner they had been hoping for. And if Vanuatu ended up unpopular because of this, the producers really have nobody to blame but themselves. Well, yeah, fair enough.
I don't know if that perception's correct anymore.
I don't know.
I mean, I still think Vanuatu is very underrated by a lot of people, but I definitely still love it. So.
Yeah, I mean, I love it too. I think, yeah, I almost wonder if some of that is maybe why it is underrated, flies under the radar. So why am I bringing all this up? Well, it's because the final Vanuatu episode makes women look so bad that I know I might get some flack for including this moment on the Funny of 115. I know a lot of people don't enjoy the way Chris played the Alinta women in the final tribal council, but I don't care. I still think it's funny as hell, because I have never seen a human being more full of shit than Chris was in his final jury performance. He was literally 100% neck deep buried in a pile of bullshit, and he loved it. He was lying, he was playing, he was cajoling, and I've never seen a human being revel in this type of deception as much as he did. In fact, Chris was having so much fun telling people what they wanted to hear that I have expected him to just break out in giggles towards the end. Because at times it seemed like he honestly couldn't believe that people were buying what was coming out of his mouth. Are you people actually buying all this? Chris's mustache twirling, I can't believe you guys are buying this shit performance was one of the most surreal things I've ever seen happen on Survivor. And my God, if the producers intend to make the women the stars and the heroes of Vanuatu, as I have always predicted, they couldn't have failed any worse if they had tried. In fact, I can't imagine the producers ever saw this ending coming in a million years. Chris Doherty winning? The guy in the red wife beater? Over these women? But the Vanuatu season wasn't supposed to end that way. Not in a million years. The sole survivor was supposed to be one of the women. But here's how Chris managed to do it. Step number 1. Before the final jury, persuade Twyla to tell people off if they give her crap during tribal council. This step was probably fairly easy to do. Twyla was always a verbal accident waiting to happen. That made her the perfect opponent for Chris in the final 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Chris and Twyla. Did he tell her that? I don't actually remember that and saying anything like that.
There was a scene before the final tribal where he was like, yeah, basically saying you shouldn't take that shit from anybody, and basically saying he was gonna do the same thing, but then he just kind of let her out to do it herself.
He didn't do that. Step number 2, kiss the ass. I do remember this. Kiss the ass of every single member of the jury. Mm-hmm. And I'm being serious when I say every single member. Because it wasn't enough that Chris kissed the women's asses. No, he did the same thing for the votes he was already guaranteed to get. Hell, Chris puckered up to Sarge so badly he practically teased his sphincter. And Chris's lips are still lodged somewhere around Amy's bottom. See, he didn't just kiss Amy's ass, he practically tongue-kissed it. Oh, here's him kissing Julie's ass. I don't remember him doing that to Amy, but...
I forget. I forget what he said to Amy.
Step number 3, apologize to all the women. This is the key to his entire jury strategy, and it was a skill that Chris mastered better than anyone else. Because no matter how insincere his words were, all Chris had to do was give the girls puppy dog eyes, well up a few fake tears, and talk about how he did them wrong. He did this over and over during the final tribal council, and it never even came close to it never even came close to failing. The women bought his fake apology every single time he did it. In fact, my favorite personal apology was when Chris told Julie, "I didn't play you. I let my heart get in the way, and I apologize." Yeah, whatever. Why not just ask for her phone number and skip all the formalities whatsoever? Chris kisses Eliza's butt and gets her to smile at him in return. Smile and forget. Hell, if it worked on Eliza, let's see if it works on Julie too. Yes, it does. Sugar daddy is not amused. That's right, because Jeff Probst dated Julie,
Yeah.
right? Sugar daddy is not amused. I love that. It's awesome. Step number 4: don't panic if Scout calls you a bullshit artist. Just accept it with a shrug and move on. Besides, nobody listens to Scout's new age ramblings anyway. Chris reacts to Scout calling him a bullshit artist. Step number 5. This is the step where Chris cemented his status as my favorite bullshit artist of all time. Make sure you wrap up your jury speech by going down the line and kissing everyone's ass one more time. Amy, you have a soft heart. And it's why you're there, because you let me back in the game.
You did say that.
Yeah, okay. Then at the end, give one more big fake apology, along with the life lesson that you somehow learned during the game. Everyone on the jury possesses genuine quality, and I don't. And that's something I will take with me and try to become a better person.
That was a good one. I remember him.
Yeah, that's a great line. That's a great line. I don't think he believed it for a second, but it's a really good line. Chris goes down the row and tells the women how wonderful each of them are. Chris tells the jury that he plans to take all this criticism and use it to become a better person. By this point, I was rolling. Chris proclaiming that he would learn from Survivor and become a better person was my favorite BS jury line of all time. But that wasn't even a shining moment. Because somehow in his final words, Chris managed to out BS even himself. It was the moment when he pulled out Julie's hat and said he was giving it back to her. And Julie, I brought you your hat because I always did see you as my little sister. Grrr, Jeff Probst. The minute that hat came out, I was sitting there just saying to myself, "Oh, police!" Did Chris really just pull out Julie's hat? Did I really just see that? But yes, in fact, I did. And that hat won Chris $1 million damn. All because he was trying to become a better person, quote unquote. Ha ha ha. Nah, fuck him.
That face. I remember that face. It was after.
That was Scout, I think.
No.
Right? Or it was something.
It was after he voted out Eliza, I thought. Or.
Oh yeah. No, yeah. You actually, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Or after he blindsided her. Or something.
He's got the necklace there. Yeah. So. Sorry, the Vanuatu finale and Chris's final speech is probably my favorite BS jury performance of all time. I also consider it the best jury performance of all time, and the fact that all the women just fell for it makes it even funnier.
Yeah.
Just think about this for a second. I bet the producers were absolutely furious when Chris Dougherty won Vanuatu. That just wasn't supposed to happen. Vanuatu was designed for women to dominate, the whole season was developed with a central theme already in mind, and then Chris went and ruined everything by making all the women look like idiots. And I have to say it was one of the funniest bits of producer irony that I've ever seen happen on Survivor. Vanuatu was designed for women to walk all over and decimate the arrogant men. And then some guy in a red wife beater ruins all that by tricking the women into giving them his vote. He does it by lying to them. He does it by sweet-talking them. He does it by telling them they were too good a person to win a nasty game like Survivor. In other words, Chris wooed the women in Vanuatu just like Lando Calrissian would pick up girls in a bar. He used the same tactics if he was trying to get into their pants. He told them exactly what they wanted to hear. He made them feel like they were all the most important people in the world. And you know how it must have driven the producers of Vanuatu absolutely crazy. Hell, it wouldn't have looked any worse if Chris had just told all the jurors that he loved them. And if I screwed you over, it's only, well, because of the fact that I loved you.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with the saying that it was Vanuatu was designed for the women to walk all over and decimate the arrogant men. It was definitely designed to instigate the gender war, but I don't see how it's designed for them to walk all over them. It just happened that way. It's like it should have. They should have decimated them, but he slept in there. He snuck in there.
Well, I think by that he's just saying like they did everything in their power possible to make it so that the women would be riled up, and also they were all like really like they were older, tougher women that with more of a chip on their shoulder with that comes to that stuff for the most part. So I think that was kind of like casting in terms of that does definitely feel a lot more leaning in that direction. So I understand what he's saying. I kind of agree with you that I don't think it's quite as like I don't necessarily think that they were like planning it to be necessarily that, because there's only so much you can really plan for when you when you do this. So as you can guess, it goes without saying that I loved every minute of the Chris Dougherty experience, and I especially loved his performance in the final Tribal Council. In fact, I better shut up about it before I get myself in trouble with NOW, the National, I don't know, something of women. So I will just say thanks, Chris. Thanks a lot, you deceptive, lying bitch. Now give me my fucking hat back. Mario, I done you wrong, and I'm sincerely sorry for it. Oh my god, we have a special Chris Dougherty, Bill Paxton bonus section. No, remember when I said that Chris Dougherty and actor Bill Paxton have almost the exact same voice and speech cadence? Well, Mr. Paxton himself was nice enough to step in and reenact some of the best moments from Chris's final Vanuatu jury performance. So enjoy the reenactment. Thanks, Bill. Here's the Chris Dougherty smile. Eliza, I truly and sincerely apologize. Do you think you can ever forgive me? I think I deserve to win, for the odds are overcome. Here, Julie, I brought you your hat. This is kind of amazing, actually, how much the smile does look like. Scout calls Chris a bullshit artist. This game is something I'll take with me, and I'll try to learn from it. Chris celebrates his win with Sarge, Bubba, and Chad. Yeah. The more I think about it, the more delightful that season really is. Yeah. Actually, it's a good one. It's a good one.
Back at it fondly for sure.
Mm.
And a lot of it's because of Chris. I think Chris
did really?
For that season.
He did, yeah, for sure.
All right, here's the last one for the evening. All right.
Okay.
60, Colby's reunion with Jerry, All Stars, episode 1. All right.
Oh baby.
Remember when I said that All Stars is the best season in terms of visual jokes and facial reactions? Well, this is one of the best. In fact, this one doesn't even need a write-up. All I have to say is that the best moment of All Stars episode 1 is when the three tribes finally meet one another and see the people that they will be playing against. It is a tremendously exciting moment for everyone in the cast, and is one of the few scenes in All Stars that will literally send chills down your spine. It truly is a larger-than-life, exciting All-Star moment. Well, unless you're Colby. Why doesn't Colby enjoy the moment like everybody else? Well, simple. It's because he isn't particularly thrilled to see that Jerry, his old nemesis from Australia, is a member of Saboga. Check out the look on Colby's face when he sees Jerry come walking out of the jungle. He could not possibly be less enthused. Here come the All-Stars. And Amber. Amber and Rob see look on in excitement. Even Richard is getting a kick out of this moment. Alicia spots Rupert in the back. The Sabogas arrived, and Jerry is thrilled to see her old nemesis, Colby. Hi, cowboy. Colby's reaction always cracks me up. Crap, Jerry. Ugh. Great moment. Too bad that it happened so fast. If you aren't looking very close, you're likely to miss it. Yeah, I definitely missed it. I definitely missed that at first.
He just looks so bummed. I love that. Look, here come the All-Stars and Amber.
You just can't play. You just can't play without her. You know. They have to come together. They're a package deal.
And yet she won. So.
Who won? Who won? Amber won.
Amber, yeah, that's what I mean. Amber won. That's what I mean.
I'm talking about Jerry.
Oh, I'm still laughing about the Here Come the All-Stars and Amber line at the beginning. Love it. Love it.
We have another installment of the Funny 115.
Good stuff. Good stuff as always.
All right, you can check it out on funny115.com. It's classic. We got a lot more to get to. You know, we're number 60, and then so that means we have 59 more. And then there's also, like, even when we get into seasons later, you know, this Funny 115 only goes from 1 to 12, and then there's one for 1 to 11, and there's one for 12 to 20. There's one for 20 to 30 that he did. So I mean,
okay,
like the 115 for each batch of 10 basically. So there's a lot out there, and obviously we can just kind of throw them in whenever we have an open spot or want to, because it doesn't have to be a certain time for it.
Right, but it just so happened we were itching to get back into it again this time around. So, yeah, good stuff.
We'd love to do more. It's just so packed right now, but we'll definitely get to it as soon as we can. Get some more.
Yeah.
Because then, for sure there's going to be a lot of moments from Panama alone in the next 115. There's a lot of funny moments in that season.
Yeah, there are for sure.
And yeah, so I'm excited to get into. It's just a few weeks away at this point, or the start of Cook Islands. Get back into the swing of things, and get some fresh and new Survivor moments in there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if you're
looking forward to it as always.
If you haven't seen them before, we have a playlist in the channel. All our Survivor videos, season reviews for every season until Panama, and then reactions from every season from Thailand up till Panama now. And yeah, subscribe if you enjoyed, like the video, leave a comment, and we'll be sure to read it in the Tarqaron podcast if you do, and hit the notification bell, all that. In the meantime, what video would you recommend our viewers watch next?
Go check out our Survivor Panama season review.
Mm-hmm.
Check it out.
That's right.
Yeah.
It was a nice one, nice lengthy discussion.
For sure.
Great
it was.
Season.
It was good stuff.
So check you out next time, all right?
All right.